It's Friday the 13th, which is spooky. It's scary. It's dusk. There's all kinds of people dressed in witch garb walking around Fenton for some reason at the moment. But what's not scary is the Michigan Mailbag, nor is Michigan's opponent on Saturday. So we're going to get into it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, Michigan Mailbag.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Friday. We're back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire. Let's get right into it, starting with our Victors Valiant, James Crudup at James Crudup 6, or Leaders and Best, rather. Leaders and Best, then Victors Valiant. I don't know what's going on. What 2 or 3 players have surprised you the most so far this season? What happened to Jimmy Rolder? I haven't seen him even in garbage time this year. Is he injured? With Rolder, I know he was injured, but I haven't even seen him in street clothes. I don't really know. I don't really know what's going on with Jimmy Rolder. But no, and he hasn't been on any of the things, so I guess it's probably a good time to ask. Try to find out. Try to find out tomorrow. See if I can remember that. The 2 or 3 players that have surprised me the most this season, I don't know that there's anyone's necessarily super surprised me. I guess Donovan, by the fact that he hasn't been kind of up to speed. Khalil Mullings hasn't really surprised me. We talked a lot about him in spring. I'm trying to think who's really surprised me. I mean, I guess Keon Sabb would be the best because I didn't think he was necessarily. I had him kind of behind Zeke Berry. Now Zeke Berry's been injured, so I had him kind of behind that. I thought that maybe we might see. Maybe even Caden Colasar above him, just for the sake of experience and such. But I don't know. I don't think anyone's necessarily surprised me. I think this has gone pretty much as expected. And I know that seems like a cop-out, but I mean, I kind of said that before the season. I said, if they play up to expectations, because people have asked, who would be your surprise player? I'm like, there's no one I feel like is a surprise player, right? Roman Wilson, what he's doing is something I've been saying for a very long time. Cornelius, I guess, it surprised me because he's finally kind of taken that step forward to some degree. Josh Barr-Jadicki, who's the guest you want for the podcast you haven't been able to get on yet? Well, I know that someone keeps on asking for Jason Avant. I just haven't reached out to him. I've told him, like, hey, let's have you on the podcast. And he said, sure. Just haven't arranged a time and a date. It's kind of difficult because, Rich Eisen is the one. I've talked to Rich Eisen about doing the podcast, and he said yes. The problem is I probably need to reach out to him directly because I went through his agency because it's where I used to work, United Talent Agency. And they just were like, yeah, not right now. So I'll reach out to Rich directly at some point. We'll wait, I think. Maybe that would be a good post-Ohio State. Try to see if we can get him on again. Not again, but get him on. I asked him... I think I just asked him at the Fiesta Bowl. I haven't seen him since 2016. We've had a little back and forth here and there on Twitter, but yeah, we'll work to get him on. Taylor Lewan is someone that he and I keep on talking about making it happen, and then like we said before Nebraska week, and then I forgot, and then we said after Nebraska week, and I still forgot. But most everyone we've gotten on. I mean, we've gotten Desmond Howard on. So I mean that was kind of the big one. I will say at one point I was really pushing to get Urban Meyer on. And I know a lot of you probably would hate that. Michigan certainly would hate that. I just was like, it would be pretty cool to get his, like, to understand what, he thinks of Michigan and all of that, and just try to get that all, like, kind of wrapped up. But I mean, otherwise, we've had giant guests on here, We've had Joel Klatt multiple times. We've had, we've had Desmond Howard, as mentioned. We've had so many giant guests on the show. My brother in metal, Michael Wolf at MWolf21. As good as Michigan has been in the last 2 years, do you believe there's still another gear they can hit? Absolutely. I think that right now their offense is not like going nuts, right? Like it hasn't necessarily had to. I think that they absolutely could. We haven't really seen a lot of the big explosive plays either. Now, that's not really their style. It's kind of like a West Coast offense for the most part. But, I mean, there is absolutely another gear that can be hit. Defensively, I don't know that there is. I think defensively it's pretty solid so far. Do you think the guys have been coached or making the decision to take less chances to stay healthy for the end of the season games? Guys are avoiding contact if they can. It does seem like that because, yeah, it does seem like you're seeing guys running out of bounds instead of fighting for more yards. Plus, I think that helps in minimizing turnovers as well. Jimmy Whitner at Jimmy Whitner 1. What side of the ball, offense or defense, has improved the most since spring camp? Defense, I would say. And I mean, even in fall camp, because the offense was ahead of the defense, and I think we can all agree the defense looks ahead of the offense at the moment. Number 2, what are your expectations going into the next 2 games? I don't know about Michigan State. I want to see what they look like against Rutgers because it sounds like they're going to play cat and Hauser. They played Iowa tougher than I think I expected. But I want to see, like, if they get beat by Rutgers, then, I mean, this is a team that's pretty much given up on life. I mean, that's not to say I think Michigan would tell you they think Rutgers is better than Michigan State. But I think that would help them give up on life. So I don't really know. What I want to see is just more of the same for the most part. Tomorrow might be a little difficult because it might be rainy, and who knows how rainy. It might just be, could just be sprinkling, could be rain in the forecast, no rain. That happens quite often. Could be complete downpour. And that would certainly could change up the game plan in game. Number 3, tell Zuri I said hi. I'd call her in here, but I closed the door because I didn't shut off the TV. So I will do. Jonathan Joseph at JJoseph2156. What do you project the Harbaugh contract to look like? We got a couple of these questions. I will continue to address them. So I'll just add kernels, I guess. I mean, the one thing that I think we can expect for sure is that he'll be the highest paid coach in the Big Ten. So James Franklin's got a pretty big contract, but I would expect him to do that. I'll add years and different stuff at the later question just to make sure everyone kind of gets included here. And, Zuri opened the door, so she is here for Jimmy. Well, kind of, but she's underneath the desk. Come here, Zuri. Come here. Come on the camera for Jimmy Whitner. There she is, Jimmy. We got a little puppy in the action here. She's pushing my chair back. Finishing us out in segment 1, Spencer Whitmore at Spencer Whitmore. Does your company expense your travel or do you get stipends? Just curious as I travel a ton for work and not sure how it works for you. No, USA Today does not cover anything, nor does Locked On. I am basically the only one that does all of the traveling. I've been told there are more people with Locked On that do, but at USA Today, no, none of the writers go to like away games and stuff like that. Because I'm an old school beat writer, and they didn't keep that model. Like I was one of the first sites, so it was like I think that was the plan and the goal, and it just didn't end up going that way. At 24/7, yeah, they covered everything, but for me, it's worth it to go, not just for credibility and closeness to the team, and being able to kind of usually I didn't either of the last 2 weeks. I get to have a lot of really good conversations and kind of learn a lot of stuff. Haven't had that, but usually it pays for itself. Not always, but usually just the content you get and going to the post-game press conference on the road, and just because you don't have nearly as many people traveling, it pays for itself, so it's worth going. All right, we're going to continue on with the Victor's Valiant. Got that right this time. In just a moment. Before we do, snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. They pay you instantly. That's the amazing part. There's a wide range of betting options, including over-unders, player props, spreads, much, much more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off NFL season. I mean, it's kicked off, but kick it off again. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. All right, on to the Victor's Valiance. Start with one of the pastors at my church, Josh Wiegand, at Josh D. Wiegand. Thoughts on Harbaugh's contract? Does it get done during the bye week? So I'll answer the latter part. Yes, I do. I think that's kind of what I've been pointing to. Who was asking me? There was some I was talking to. Oh, it was when we had Nicole Auerbach on the other day. And she, off air, she was like, what do you think is going to happen? I said, I think it'll get done during the bye week. That's the time that it makes most sense because he doesn't have to be quite as focused on football as a pressing in-week matter. So I do think it will get done during the bye week. That is what I feel. I mean, maybe we'll be surprised it gets done before that. Maybe we'll be at the game tomorrow and they'll announce it and I won't be able to do anything about it because I'll be on the field. Who knows exactly? But yeah, that's my thought. Athir Cotter at Athir Cotter 1. Okay, I got a good question. Why our running game not what to be like last year's? If something has to do with getting JJ early involved. Thanks, my bro. Love the Go Blue. Well, number one, I mean, a while ago, we had Trevor Sikkema on a couple weeks ago, and he said that guys aren't really making guys miss as much. It's starting to kind of get into that. They're just not hitting the home runs. I mean, they're still running like at a pretty good clip. They're just not hitting those big home runs. And just Jim Harbaugh said, like, that's not normal that they did what they were doing last kind of 2 years. Like, that's not normal that every game you have one big long run at least. But give it time. And I think the offensive line took a couple weeks to kind of get going, and that's why we've seen some longer runs the last 2 weeks. Last 3 weeks, really. So, I mean, I don't think it's what happened last year, basically, as Jim Harbaugh would say, is not sustainable. And they've just kind of fallen back down to earth, but they're happy with the way things are going. I mean, they're carrying, like 5 yards per carry at that, if that. We can look it up real fast. Real fast, just to be able to. So average. So Michigan is ranked 26th, averaging 5.07 yards per carry. Man, I'm good. So they're doing it. They're doing a pretty good job, right? Like they're not the top Big Ten team. Looks like Kentucky has that. Oregon's averaging 7 yards a carry, joining the Big Ten. But Michigan's ahead of everyone else that's currently in the Big Ten. Nebraska used to be the number one team overall. And keeping in mind, like, once they've gotten into garbage time, it hasn't necessarily been more breakout, right? Like when they've put in like CJ Stokes and some of these other guys, Leon Franklin, it hasn't necessarily been like quite as much. So it's been kind of dragging things down to some degree. Because when it comes to yards per game, Michigan's actually 38th, but yards per carry, they're up much higher. And to look at, like, so Blake Corum's at 5.95. Donovan is starting to tick up at 3.47. Kalel Mullings has got 6.39. JJ McCarthy's got 6.65. But then you look at like Leon Franklin 3, Tavier Dunlap 4.2, CJ Stokes 2, Cole Cabana 3, Henry Donahue 3, Benjamin Hall, who's had 2 carries, averaged 1 per. So that's a big part of it. All right, continuing on. James Kovalevsky at Coach_Kovo. When people think of the Heisman pose, may think of Desmond Howard's iconic pose, but it's fairly different than the actual trophy. Would you be in favor of modernizing the trophy to portray Howard's pose? Ed Smith from now defunct NYU football posed for the current trophy in 1935. I mean, absolutely, because that is what everybody thinks of, right? It's kind of whenever we even have like a pick, it's always with the leg up and all of that. And if you look at the current picture, it's not, right? He's just kind of got one foot in front of the other and his arm out. So yeah, that would be pretty cool. I think that, that's what people know Desmond Howard for. And when they think Heisman Trophy, they do think that pose. The Rican Raider at Hamstand87. Will Don transfer? No, I don't think it, because his issue isn't like a lack of carries. Good thing we're on this. I mean, he's got 32 less carries than Blake Corum. So, I mean, they thought to do equal, but Blake Corum kind of had more success. It's kind of more on the fact that he's just not producing, right? Blake's averaging 13.83 carries a game. Donovan's averaging 8.3. So, it's more of his production. It's not like a scenario where they're not playing him. Right? No, I don't think he would transfer. Clark at Blue for Life 8. If Michigan and Harbaugh get an extension finalized, do you think he is done flirting with the NFL for a couple years, or do you expect to happen every offseason? I think he's done. I've long said that. I think he's done. I think the last year of the flirting with the NFL, he was offered the job and turned it down. Denver Broncos, it was strictly to get what he wanted from Michigan. So I do think he was earnest in 2021 when he said this is done, but I think he also recognized like I have an opportunity to get NIL stuff and all that kind of thing, get my new contract going, you know. But no, I think he's done. Will it be a rumor every year? Absolutely, it will be. Jacob Shavoria at Shavoria. We give a play-by-play from when the clock struck 0 and the fans started to storm the field when Michigan beat OSU in 2021. Did security try to stop it? Did you get trampled before 2021 was last time fans stormed the field? And then what's the contract you would like to offer, Jim? I have another contract question, so I'll get to that later. And I can't answer that, honestly, because I wasn't on the field. I was up in the press box for that game. So I don't know. I've never been at a Michigan game when people have stormed the field. I've only been at rival games, 2 Ohio State games, an Iowa game. I think are the only ones, to my recollection. Perry Mitchell at Perry Mitchell 08. I asked this last year, and you said it was too early, and maybe it was. So I'll ask again. At this point, is Mason Graham a problem for every team that isn't the Wolverines? 100%. That became very evident. It's been evident so far this year. I believe he's the top-rated PFF guy overall when it comes to, at least for Michigan, not overall. But let's see. Defensive interior grades, 159 teams. Well, he's the number 2 guy in the country. Grades out after 4 games of play for him. Some as many as 7. He's the number 2 graded defensive interior player in the entire country. Chris Jenkins is number 8. Tyleik Williams from Ohio State's number 13. Zane Durant for Penn State is number 19. Kenneth Grant is number 26. So note that. That's important to note, right? Like out of all these teams in the conference around and all that, Michigan's, you got Mason Graham and Kenneth and Chris Jenkins are both ahead of the next, like against over Ohio State's top guy and Penn State's top guy. And then right behind them, you have Kenneth Grant. I mean, that's rarefied air, not to use the 2023 recruiting slogan. I'm not the one at William Cawthorne 9. Do you think our second team offense and defense could win the Big Ten West? Oh, I see. I read that as the Big Ten earlier. Yeah, probably. I mean, would it be close against like Wisconsin? Absolutely. Maybe even Iowa. But yeah, I think at the moment, especially the way they played the last 2 weeks, yeah, I think they could. Big Ten East, no, but the West, yeah. Didn't we get a kicker transfer kicker from Mississippi State? Yes, Hudson Hollenbeck, but he's just kind of waiting his turn, right? He's a second-year player, so he'll get out there when it's his time. Dr. JT, PhD at Vaunted JT. Who are the best players on the scout team? I don't want to pretend like I know. We haven't talked about them. Normally we talk about them during the bye week. Bye week's in a couple weeks, so ask that one again. Leon Adams at LL Adam. Am I overreaching when I think the pass defense has struggled this year? When we look at stats, they are a top team, but a lot of blown coverages. Hopefully the back end of the defense gets better as they get healthy. You're overreacting. They've had a couple. They have had literally a handful of blown coverages. Let's go to PFF. We're already there, so I think that will be a good indicator. Teams coverage. Michigan's 18th in the country. Yes, they're behind a couple teams that you don't want to necessarily be behind. Iowa's number 2, Ohio State's number 5. So, but they're 18th. They're ahead of North Carolina and Penn State and Maryland and Rutgers and Washington and Notre Dame and USC and Oklahoma and Clemson and Florida State. So they're doing all right. They have a coverage grade of 91. So Ohio State's at 92.6. But some of the blown coverages have happened in garbage time. Some of them is just they're in the wrong defense, as Jim Harbaugh has said. Sometimes, no, I wouldn't worry about it. Let's see where we at. Michigan's armchair quarterback at armchair QB _UM. Does Jack Tuttle throw 1 or 2 touchdowns against Indiana? Well, if it's super rainy tomorrow, then maybe none. But yeah, I hope to see him throw a couple touchdowns. I hope that they make him the only backup that goes in the game, because what a thrill that would be to go and play against his former team that way. And then if they end up playing Utah, which that would be a disaster because Utah's not super great, then that would be the other one because he played there as well. Anton says, Smita Mangala at Smita Mangala. I saw there's a scenario where an undefeated ACC team could be left out of the conference championship game. Additionally, next year there's a scenario with 5 undefeated Big Ten teams going into the championships. I know I'm really, in reality, stuff usually works out. Oh, I don't really have a response, but yeah, I mean, it could. There'll be tiebreakers and stuff like that. But yeah, certainly, especially, if Michigan makes it through its schedule, and then you're going to see 3 big teams, or 4 big teams that, whatever, but like say Michigan makes it through its schedule, Penn State makes it through its schedule, and UCLA, I think, plays Penn State. I don't know. There's probably some scenarios there. Chaos and what ifs are more fun. How would the league handle this scenario? Again, they'd have a series of tiebreakers just like they do right now. Also, how does Michigan get the backup long snapper some game time experience? Well, they did last year when he got to play. Greg Tarr got to play in lieu of William Wagner, who had torn his ACL. So there's that. So Wagner's probably not going to cede that, especially as a senior, willingly. Rich Nelson at Rich Nelson 1. Do you think Harbaugh, finishing us out, by the way, Harbaugh, Sharon Moore go out of their way to get A.J. Barner targets or even a TD against his former team? Yeah, I think so. Probably. I hope so. Again, I'm all for seeing that type of thing happen. But getting more guys into the end zone just for a confidence standpoint would be good, right? Colston Loveland finally got in this last week. It'd be good to see more guys kind of get into that. Also, how are the allergies since starting Allermy? Because he was kind enough to refer me to this service that would hopefully help me with the field stuff. So I got to try it at Minnesota. I think only Minnesota, not Nebraska. Maybe it was both. I think it was just Minnesota. So far, so good. But Michigan, I don't know how Minnesota's field normally affects me. Sometimes field turf doesn't affect me at different places. Michigan, I feel like, has more rubber. We'll find out tomorrow because I'm not taking any Benadryl. I'm just using the Allermy. So we'll see. All right, we're going to continue on here in just a moment with the Blue Crew. Before we do that, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you've got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. If you want your company to win its national championship, be the best company of its kind out there, you need the right people to be able to do that. In order to do so, LinkedIn Jobs is your key. It's so easy to create a job on LinkedIn Jobs. Once you do, you can add the purple hashtag hiring frame to let everyone know that you are hiring. You can spread the word on your LinkedIn profile. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. You can have your own transfer portal, just like Michigan used it to go and get all of the guys that are going to help them get over the hump, win a national championship. You can dip into your own transfer portal to help your company do exactly the same. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to for free, and they do so faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, we're to the Blue Crew. We've got a ton of questions left, so we are gonna lightning round this as much as possible. Nathan Knowles at 41421. When Ohio State beats Michigan, they get a golden pants pin. Does Michigan hand out pins if they win, or do they do something different? They do something different. It's like I don't think it's a pin. It's like a medal. Yeah, it's like a medal. It's a little bit different every time. I don't really remember what's on it. I just know that they give out like a medal. But yeah, they do have a tradition that started under Jim Harbaugh that didn't exist before. Biased Wolverine at D1 hater of OSU. Why is Michigan so good? Well, it's the trench play, having a quarterback that is not just efficient, but obviously ecstatic, an amazing run game. They can control the clock. The front seven can really put pressure, and even though they aren't getting the stats, it's helping kind of force teams into plays that they don't want to be in. They're winning generally 2 phases, if not all 3 phases of the game every week. Bowling Green, they lost special teams, but other than that, they won the other 2 phases of the game. Paul H. Lauren at Paul H. Lauren, what would the team look like? And B, if those players who would have been drafted took that choice. I mean, you still would have had J.J. McCarthy, Donovan Edwards. You still had some good players. So maybe the growing pains would have been taken a little bit longer, but with the teams that are on the schedule, Michigan would have been just fine. Would find out more just like we are now. Like, what is this team once they play Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State? Adam at Pastor H20. Who are the top most likely candidates from the Big Ten West to play us in the championship? Who would you enjoy us playing the most? I don't really care about the teams in the West. Wisconsin would be the number one. I want to see Wisconsin. I wanted to see Iowa when it was going to be, potentially Cade and Eric All. I mean, they're still in contention. I think there's a lot of teams I think pretty much everyone's still in contention at the moment. I mean, it's still really early in the Big Ten play, but I would say Wisconsin and Iowa are probably the only two likely ones, but weirder things have happened. I feel like we've thought that at some point, like last year, and then Purdue ends up getting in. Let's see. Aaron, 44-time big champs, Michigan Wolverines at Little Aaron Forever. How good is this Michigan football team right now? 0 sacks allowed, 1 penalty in the last 2 games. I think this team is capable of winning it all. It's not flashy, but they execute everything to the T. I mean, you said it. That's how good I think they are. Stan at Dazed Confused 18. Where do you eat when traveling for away games? Are there specific restaurants or types of food that stick out in each city, campus, etc.? Kind of depends on just how I'm feeling, especially depending on my type of travel. If I'm driving, I might not. Like the last couple times I've gotten like Chipotle, nothing like crazy. I think I got it each of the last 2 road trips, to be honest. I like to look for a bespoke place on campus, but I was staying in Omaha, so in West Omaha, and there was nothing really around, so I just got DoorDash from Chipotle. I didn't really want to go out in Minnesota due to how poorly things went for me when I went out last time. I went to like a little cool upscale bar tavern type place when I went in 2020. So it all just kind of depends on where. I don't know that there's a Mexican place I'll definitely go back to when I go to Penn State in State College, which means I'd have to drive all the way on campus, but maybe I won't because I might not be staying nearly as close. I might end up staying in Pittsburgh and driving in the day of the game. But I don't know that there are any of the places that have like a place that I've like continually gone to. I do like to go to a non-chain if possible, but I can't recall there being any place that I've necessarily gone to twice, even in the places that I've gone to 5 times, like Indiana, or 6 times, however many times I've been to Indiana. It's just kind of all depends on how I feel in the moment. Acracray at Acracraft 40. I miss listening to yours. I lost my headphones. We'll get some new headphones. It's easy. Get some cheap ones. Tyler Ray Amblin at Ty Ray Am. Does Penn State or Ohio State pose a bigger threat to us? I mean, it's probably Ohio State, but I still think Penn State. That's what Michigan has circled. I mean, it's still probably Ohio State. I mean, if they played right now, I think Michigan would beat Ohio State way worse than Penn State. And it's going to be at home. I think Michigan would destroy Ohio State at the moment, but the game doesn't happen for another 7 weeks. Penn State, I think, is much more ready to deal with Michigan at the moment. Put it that way. Conan Dunovix at Dunovix. Hey, man, where in the heck is Alex Orji? Well, he was injured for a little while, so he didn't come on the road trips, even though he's not on the sheet, I don't believe. But certainly I'm sure he's working his way back. Harry Dieters at Harry Dieters. Is it time to be concerned about Donovan Edwards? Playtime dropping, less targets, Mullings getting more of pretty much every statistic. Would hate to see a guy like that transfer. Again, I'm not concerned with him transferring. He's maybe only missing. We can check real quick, and I could maybe be very wrong. What's his snap counts by week? I don't think it's that drastic, right? I just don't. Because keep in mind, he's out there a lot as a receiver, and it might not necessarily be a ton. So it's not really, I mean, he had 37 snaps in week 1, 26, 20, 21, 28, and 18. So yeah, it dropped a little bit last week, but I mean, he had the second most snaps of the season at Nebraska. So he had more than he did in week 2, when you would have expected, just because he didn't have the best game in the world in week 1, that that wasn't going to mean that he was going to have this big deterrent, drop off from there. So no, I'm not concerned about him transferring whatsoever. Michigan bred at T Mellon 615. Yes, if Roman Wilson goes down to injury, who would fill his shoes? I don't know, because I guess you would look at Samaj Morgan as being, kind of that guy to some degree, but you would hope Tyler Morris steps up, kind of probably closer to being a similar guy. I just want to see the whole group raise up a little bit from where they're at, personally. Michigan 45-23 at Wolverine Wise. What are your thoughts on Ohio State and Penn State throughout halfway through the year, and what are Michigan's advantages and areas of concern against both? My concerns is probably just playing their defense, less so against Penn State, just because I've been assured Michigan has the secret sauce there. I don't know that I have a ton of concerns at the moment about either. Penn State's offense concerns me more overall. When Travion Henderson is healthy, he concerns me. Chip Trayanum concerns me, and Marvin Harrison Jr. concerns me. So, and I already talked about the rest. Big Felt at Felt Big. Why does Thaw get punt return duties? Feels like he's a liability back there. I don't think it's quite that bad. I mean, he's had his moments, but people have tended to say that about just about anybody. Even AJ Henning, for a while, it was like he lets too many balls go uncaught and whatever, but because he returned a couple here and there, people loved him. Finishing us out, Gary Klein at Klein Gary. Who's the QB Michigan's trying to get out of the portal for next year? I don't know, because it is not a for sure thing that JJ McCarthy is leaving. So you don't necessarily need to go and get a guy out of the portal. We'll find out. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will be back with a post game sometime either Saturday or Sunday. Almost certainly Saturday, because it's an earlier game. So that's the plan. All right, we'll talk to you again soon. Peace.